Ball Nation
Squad.
Oh boy, emergency podcast. Breaking news after weeks, I think, of rumors and speculation. Robert Livingston kind of sniffing around the NFL. It becomes official today that he is headed back to the NFL, to the Denver Broncos of all teams, to be their passing game coordinator. Colorado has then promoted Chris Marve, linebackers coach, just hired about 2 months ago. From linebackers coach, promoted to defensive coordinator. Is DNVR Buffs Emergency Podcast presented by friends over at New Built Restoration and Construction, man. Anything goes wrong in your life or any emergency, they got you covered. Tell them DNVR sent you. Scotty, initial reactions. Robert Livingston out, Chris Marve, your new defensive coordinator.
Yeah, man, it was I don't know if we can really call it a surprise because, as you mentioned at the top there has been some speculation that Robert Livingston, more than speculation, we know he's been interviewing the last 2 off seasons to get back to the NFL. This is an NFL guy. This is somebody who a couple years ago I said that could be a rising star in the coaching profession. And I think his return to the NFL, even after a disappointing season for Colorado football, I think kind of shows that a little bit, that he is wanted by NFL coaches, NFL circles, NFL teams and whatnot. So for me personally, it sucks to lose a talented coach, a talented young coach like Robert Livingston. But, you know, that's why you bring in guys like Chris Marv who have defensive coordinator, you know, in their experience, in their history. And this is somebody in Chris Marv who spent 3 seasons, I believe, as a defensive coordinator in the ACC at Virginia Tech from 2022 to 2024, was a defensive run game coordinator, linebackers coach at Florida State for a couple of years before that, was in the SEC for a year before that at Mississippi State. This is somebody who was a really good linebacker in the SEC in his own right back in the day, Jakey. I don't know if you knew this. This is a 4-time All-SEC linebacker at Vanderbilt.
Mm-hmm.
His 397 career tackles are 9th in school history. So this is somebody who played at a high level, been coaching now for 11 seasons. This is going to be his 12th season coaching for the Buffs here in 2026. His 4th year as a defensive coordinator, and tweeted this earlier today, but his last season as a defensive coordinator, which was just a couple years ago in 2024, Virginia Tech, the Hokies, 22 points allowed per game. That was 3rd in the ACC, 215 passing yards allowed a game, 5th in the conference, 37 sacks, 5th in the conference, 15 picks, 5th in the conference. So a lot of the metrics for that Virginia Tech defense under Chris Marv that year was top 5 in the conference. And you'll take that, especially if you can get that after what this defense kind of put on tape and display last year. It's tough to lose a guy who has kind of built up what Robert Livingston has just in terms of the personnel and whatnot the last couple of years. But this is somebody in Chris Marv who knows what it takes. A young guy, an energetic guy. And I'll point this out too, which I think is really cool. Uncle Neely was on it out the gate, who kind of broke the news. You now have a head coach, an offensive coordinator, a defensive coordinator, all black, which I think is really dope. And I don't know how rare that is in college football, particularly at the Power 4 level. That has to be one of one, I would think. I actually think it's one of one. Like, this might actually be college football history that we're talking about right here, which who else but Deion coach Prime Sanders to do something like that? What are your thoughts, though?
It has to be, first off. I mean, we'd know that by now, right? Like, that we probably would have heard that. So get ready to hear that stat about this staff pretty soon and all over the place as well. But yeah, going back to Robert Livingston, as you said, this was no secret. Like, he was looking around. He was longing for the NFL. He wanted to return to the NFL. He spent a long time in the NFL. I mean, literally, his coaching career, I can't remember exactly how it went, but it was like William and Mary, Furman, and it was like straight to the Bengals for like 10 years. Obviously, he took a bit of a promotion coming here to call plays, be the DC. When he was, working his way up, Lou Anarumo seemed like he was going to be around there for forever. Funny how this profession works. Robert Livingston leaves. I think Lou Anarumo only lasts one additional season before he's fired. But yeah, it was only a matter of time before Coach Liv went back to the NFL. I'm hyped it's the Broncos personally. I mean, not the podcast for that, but we wish him well, man. Again, last year, I'm not going to put all on his shoulders. When your team can't tackle, I really struggle to blame the defensive coordinator, the guy calling the plays, especially when guys are in position and it's just a matter of getting the dude to the ground. So on that end, it is what it is. Chris Marve, though, I mean, it explains exactly why this move happened, right? Why they looked or were interested in him. And, people are he's still going to be the linebackers coach. I think it's possible. I mean, Robert Livingston was coaching safeties. He was helping out with that group. Obviously, more is going to be on his plate now, so we'll see exactly. And Coach Hart is still there, so we'll see how that breakdown actually works. But it's absolutely possible for him to still kind of help coach the linebackers, and it's honestly probably good that Coach Hart is still there if this is the case then, because if he can give his full time to the linebackers, at least you have Coach Hart who's been there, done that, and can at least pick up some of the slack while Marv is, designing a whole defense. It's early still, right? This news broke, 40, 50 minutes ago? Just looking through some stuff real quick, though. It seems like a 4-2-5 defense, pretty similar from a scheme-wise as to what Robert Livingston and what Colorado's been running under Coach Prime to this point. That's about all I can tell you at this point. I'm going to have to watch a little bit more here before we, head in and still have the regular show today. But in terms of like the changes of this defense and the structure, I don't think it's going to be too much. Obviously, it's a different voice. It's going to be a different play caller, and there is going to be probably some significant install meetings and, a lot to handle mentally this spring for these players because of this change that's coming down the pipeline too. But the good news is you haven't started spring football yet. So you get to kind of start with that clean slate when the pads get on and you're able to hit the football field here in just a few days. So, yeah.
One last thing on Robert Livingston. It's pretty cool, right? He gets to reunite with Vance Joseph, who he worked with on the Bengals staff, some years ago, which is obviously cool to reunite with somebody, like that you have previous experience with. So that's cool on that end. But, as it relates to Marv and his defense, right? We just had the news yesterday of Dante Carter being the new defensive line coach. You have a new DC now. You have a new cornerbacks coach now. For all the people who want to change, and rightfully so, they're getting it, right? You talk about install meetings. I don't know too much about what Virginia Tech and Marv ran a couple years ago defensive-wise, schematically. But I agree with you. I don't think it would be too much of a schematic change, but we'll see. But either way, there are going to be some different wrinkles. And when you have a new offensive coordinator, a new defensive coordinator, new position coaches, again, that's what a lot of people were clamoring for after a 3-9 season, after the year that we all just witnessed transpire. So this team is going to look a lot different from a personnel perspective, from a coaching perspective, and that's what you needed to see. So I'm excited to see it all come together, how it all comes together, because there is not really any version of running this thing back. It's all new. This is a new team from top to bottom, and I think it had to be that way. And there are going to be people who were upset yesterday about the Don Carter hire. Like, this resume isn't moving me, so to speak. And there are going to be some people who say the same thing about Chris Marv. But time will tell. The evidence will be out there before we know it, and we'll be able to make objective judgments on it. But as of right now, this is somebody who has DC experience at the Power 4 level. And I think losing a defensive coordinator this late in the process, you could have done a lot worse.
Absolutely. I mean, Coach Prime clearly knew what was going on with Coach Rob. He knew Coach Rob, and they probably talked about this. Like, you know what I mean? Like, this isn't news to him. Like, he probably found out after the season, like, Rob was going to look around for an NFL gig.
Yeah.
And it's just a matter of fact, too. Like, it's nothing like vengeful or like Rob was trying to like he was trying to find a good job in the NFL, which is, again, he was an NFL coach for however long. I'll pull it up right now, but
I think it was something like 8 years or something like that, from his time as a scout to, position coach.
Exactly.
It wouldn't surprise me if when Livingston got to Colorado, there was a plan in place, like, I'm going to try to spend 2 years here, do a good job here, and get back to the NFL. It wouldn't surprise me if those are conversations ever had.
He started with the Bengals in 2012 as a scout.
Yeah.
That is
almost a decade, over a decade.
They're 11, 12 years. The blip on the radar in his resume is the Colorado DC position. You know what I mean? Like, this is someone who was projecting to be a long-time NFL coach. And, he took the jump to Colorado. God bless him for it. 2024 was amazing. Last year, it didn't work out. You didn't hit on transfer portal players. You didn't have depth on your team. You had injuries, and you couldn't tackle. So, yes, if you want to blame the coaching for the tackling part, sure, by all means, whatever. But at the same time, as you said, Julian Lewis is like Julian Lewis and Coach Prime are like the only like signs of continuity from last year at all.
Right.
And defensively, that was the worst part of the team. Like we can talk about, the issues with the quarterback, with the play caller, with the non-existent running game last year on offense. This defense couldn't stop a nosebleed, man. That Utah game was painful. They let up, I don't even know how many rushing yards, 300 plus rushing yards from the first play.
Right.
It was crazy.
They did that.
So these changes are exactly what you asked for in a certain sense. It's exactly what Coach Prime was talking about when he was talking about Last Supper too, right? Like, this is no surprise, or shouldn't be a surprise, in terms of, if you watch the 2025 Buffs, this is what they needed to do. So, I don't know if you got much else. I mean, we got another show here coming up in an hour and a half that we're going to have to get ready for here very soon. So we can cut it here if you want to get your final thoughts out.
Yeah, I mean, I think I said everything, my initial thoughts, my initial takeaways. This is not a move that I think caught Coach Prime by surprise by any means. And I think the historical context shouldn't be understated or overlooked. That you have a black head coach, you have a black offensive coordinator, you have a black defensive coordinator, two coordinators who are, younger than 40. That is really cool. And that is historical stuff in the context of college football. During Black History Month is even cooler, I might add. So I love that, and I'm excited to see those young coaches kind of grow into a spot that, I think is they have plenty of talent to work with, and it's up to them to make the most of it and, prove Coach Prime right, so to speak, that he chose them for these very, very important and pivotal roles.
Coach Prime, I mean, he's mentioned about, how much he values elevating his guys, right? And I think the fact that it is, two black coordinators, it is historic, bro. I mean, absolutely. So it's something that's going to be mentioned a lot moving forward here. We're going to be talking live at 1 o'clock. We'll have Uncle Neely on the show as well. So, let us, get prepared, and we'll be back here in about an hour and a half or so. See y'all then.
See you then.
We all silly like the mayor.